This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet. The next update for your wallet is here. Just in time for Christmas, you can get 30% off by visiting my special discount link, ridge.com/skillup. Click the link below or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, welcome back. Lovely to see you as always. Hope you've had a fantastic week. I sure have. I've been mucking around with my new Steam Deck OLED. I've been playing some Diablo 4 actually. Season 2 is pretty good, not gonna lie. Unpopular as it is to declare yourself a Diablo 4 enjoyer, I have to admit it's true. I've also been preparing for my trip to LA a bit. I'll be over there for the Game Awards because for the first time ever, SkillUp is gonna be part of the judging panel. I'm pretty proud of that. The Game Awards is not perfect, obviously, but I like that there's a big shindig where we all get together as an industry and celebrate the hard work and accomplishments of game makers. Especially this year, since this is one of the biggest and best years ever in terms of the quantity and quality of games we've been able to enjoy. Personally, I'm looking forward to abusing my new status as a Game Awards judge. The goal? Make Outer Wilds Game of the Year every year. I've been doing it for the last 4 years on my own channel. Now it's time to take the project international. I'll keep you posted on how that effort goes, but for now, we should probably talk about some gaming news. The rumors are true. Sony are indeed remastering The Last of Us Part 2, and it's confirmed to be launching this coming January 19th. I can think of few better ways to start off 2024 than returning to The Last of Us Part 2 discourse with a side of, does this deserve a remaster discourse to chase it down? Really starting off the year strong right there. Thanks very much, Sony. Okay, so here are the details in this. Sony are all about remastering their previous releases no matter how recently they released. Spider-Man 2 just launched last month, so the clock is already running on when that gets the remastered treatment. I'm betting 6 months, top. Sony are getting pretty good at this. In the case of The Last of Us Part 2, you may be surprised to know that this game has not actually been released on PS5 yet. It was only ever the PS4 version to this point, so a port of the game was certainly to be expected eventually, only Sony aren't calling this a port, they're calling it a remaster. It does deliver some modest graphical improvements, but more importantly, it'll support native 4K fidelity mode, 1440p performance mode, and an unlocked frame rate for variable refresh rate panels. Beyond visual improvements, the remaster also contains what Naughty Dog are calling lost levels, which are unfinished prototype levels that didn't make it into the final game. You'll be able to explore these levels with a developer commentary track explaining different parts of them. That's kind of a cool feature, to be honest. The headline offering is a new game mode called No Return, which is a roguelike survival mode that drops you into randomized combat encounters to see how long you can last. This apparently has different characters with different innate skills, there's a progression pathway, there's a leaderboard, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's no factions, of course, but it certainly appears to be a pretty meaty offering in its own right. Oh, and did I mention that there's a free play guitar mode now? Sony tried to position this as a nice to have, but I suspect this will be the main thing doing the rounds on social media when this eventually drops. Give us an in-game musical instrument, and it's only a matter of time before the Fire and Flames rocks up. Best of all, and perhaps most surprising, Sony isn't charging $70 for this. Well, they are if you don't already own the game, but if you've already got a digital or physical copy, then the upgrade will cost you just $10 US. And that is a damn good price. I know we all had our views on the merits of a $70 Last of Us Part 1 with no upgrade option. Fair enough, but here with Part 2, Sony and Naughty Dog are delivering all of these graphical improvements, cut content, commentary tracks, and an entirely new game mode, all for $10. Pretty hard to complain about that, I think. This release is exclusive to the PS5 for now, but with it arriving in January, I think it's very safe to assume that a PC version will follow some months later. Hopefully that port ends up launching in a better state than The Last of Us Part 1 port did. Are Nixus free? Just get them to do it. They always crush it. Alright, so that's The Last of Us Part 2. What else is going on? Well, did you guys hear about these Fortnite skins? Look, it's not super interesting. Basically, Fortnite slapped a new age rating on their cosmetics. So if a skin has like an ammo belt on it or something, then it becomes age restricted and it can't be taken into all game modes. Doesn't sound like a big deal until you recall that skins had to this point been sold as permanently usable in all Fortnite game modes. So this is very much Epic going back on that initial promise made at the point of sale. Understandably, people were upset about this. Epic danced around for a bit trying to push forward with the change, but eventually totally walked it back. Though they are promising some changes in future that will mean you can use modified versions of your more mature skins in all game modes. Okay, so like I said, that's not particularly interesting. I'll tell you what is interesting. The former creative director for Fortnite, a guy named Donald Mustard, that's his real name, he left Epic and has just taken up a senior role at Agbo, the production company started by Avengers Endgame directors Anthony and Joe Russo. This was first reported by Steven TLOU of Axios, and he notes that Mustard is now listed as a partner on Agbo's website, Now, Agbo haven't done any video game stuff yet, but Nexon, a game publisher, bought a 38% stake in Agbo last year for $400 million. That is a lot of money. Epic has also invested in Agbo, and last year Mustard and Joe Russo gave a joint presentation where Russo said, quote, "The focus with Agbo and our partnership have been with video game companies," end quote. It's unclear at this point if this means more transmedia stuff like game adaptations, which would make a lot of sense given the skill set of the founders, or if maybe Agbo plan to get into the actual game making business, which seems like a long shot given that the founders don't know how to make video games, they make movies. Either way, Hollywood heavyweights are putting big money and big words behind this. You've literally got two of the most successful filmmakers of the past decade partnering up with arguably the most successful game maker of the past decade. That's a partnership that's playing for keeps, and we're certainly going to have to keep a close eye on whatever they've got cooking. At the other end of the success spectrum is Ascendant Studios, who recently released this spectacularly unsuccessful Immortals of Avium. I reviewed this one, link below the like button, and even while I was reviewing it, I was like, this is pretty good, but it's definitely not going to sell. Sure enough, the game cratered pretty hard at launch, struggling to get even a few hundred concurrent plays on Steam and meeting some very middling reviews. As a result, the studios had to let go a bunch of staff, and this week's CEO Brett Robbins spoke to Windows Central about why they ended up where they did and what's next. On the topic of layoffs, he didn't mince words. Quote, "The layoffs really suck. There's no two ways around it. We are not a big corporation, our business relies on selling games, and we didn't sell enough games. And that forced me to make that decision, which it was really unfortunate. These are people I worked closely with, people that put their heart and soul into this game. You never ever want to have to do that," end quote. He's optimistic about the future of his studio though, saying that he hopes to continue growing Ascendant and maybe working with those departed colleagues once again one day. On the topic of the game coming to Game Pass and PS Plus, he was straight up about that too. Quote, "Certainly those services give you a wider funnel. More people might engage with the game, that's always good. Yes, we're talking to them about getting the game onto both of those services. We don't have a date yet. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen though," end quote. When it does arrive in those services, I do recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's not incredible, but it's a good time, and at the Game Pass price point, I think it's going to hit right for a bunch of people. Alrighty, let's talk about the Suicide Squad. So, we're about 2 months from launch now, if you can believe it. Oh my god. I can't believe it. Just saying that aloud has made me realize that February is really fucking close, and I still feel like I haven't even fully processed last February. Anyway, the game is coming out February 2nd. Given how long it's been since we heard anything about it, I had suspected that it was going to cop another delay, but just this week, Warner Brothers started turning the crank on the hype machine, which means that barring any last-minute disasters, that February 2nd release date is all but locked in. So Rocksteady have just released a 20-minute Vidoc thing onto the PlayStation YouTube channel. Didn't go super well. At the time of writing, the video has substantially more dislikes than likes and a very hostile comment section. Most people disappointed that this was the game that Rocksteady are making, it being a live service looter shooter rather than an immersive single player game like the Arkham trilogy was. So I watched the whole 20 minutes, and I want to be clear that I don't want to prejudge this. It could be absolutely fantastic. We won't know until we play it for ourselves. But so far, it's not filling me with a lot of confidence. Technically, it looks really strong in the sense that it's running beautifully here and the draw distances are huge. The Fortnite style art and color palette is less to my personal taste, but hey, obviously they're drawing a clear line between this and Gotham City, fair enough. For me, the writing isn't really landing. I don't know, I think the game is trying to be funny in some moments, but the jokes aren't really hitting. The biggest issue remains the gameplay. The unrestricted verticality of these characters is weird. In this trailer, we learn that Harley Quinn is using Batman's gadgets as her means of transportation, and Captain Boomerang is using some flash device that somehow gives him a taste of the Flash's powers or something. It's just totally weird that these characters are able to move in this way. The combat looks to be the most shaky part of the package. Every clip they showed, it was like, is that it? The brilliance of Batman's combat was that it was so perfectly aligned to the fantasy of that hero. The conceit and the mechanics complemented themselves to create this brutal ballet. Here you've got Captain Boomerang teleporting around and using a sniper rifle while King Shark unloads his miniguns into his foes. It's odd. Like I said, perhaps this is way more fun in the playing, but none of us will get the chance to do that until the game launches next year. So in the meantime, we can only go by what we're seeing here, and so far what we're seeing ain't super great. The stakes for Suicide Squad are pretty high for Warner Brothers, not only because they've dumped an absolute truckload of money into it over the past 8 years, but also because they're going all in on live services. Everyone's favorite entertainment CEO, David Zaslav, has said that he plans to transform Warner Brothers' biggest gaming franchises into always-on live service games. Yay! Quote, "Our focus is on transforming our biggest franchises from largely console and PC based with 3 to 4 year release schedules to include more always on gameplay through live services, multi-platform and free-to-play extensions, with the goal to have more players spending more time on more platforms. Ultimately, we want to drive engagement and monetization of longer cycles and at higher levels. We are currently under scale and see significant opportunity to generate greater post-purchase revenue," end quote. A very stirring speech there, gives me a whole lot of faith in Warner Brothers' future game-making efforts, and hey, if any of them don't pan out, they can always just delist them and then throw them in the garbage, like they just did with that Coyote vs. Acme movie, which was literally finished, but they'd rather destroy it and claim the tax write-off than release it to the public. These are the people who are funding the next wave of live service titles. Think about that long and hard before you slap down your cold hard cash for a pre-order. In many ways, Warner Brothers appears to be rocking up to the live service party well after the parents have got home and called the cops. Almost every week we report on a new live service going under or being canned even before it's released. It's gotten so bad that it seems like Sony are starting to ease off on their live service ambitions. You'll recall that outgoing boss man Jim Ryan went all in on live services, greenlighting no fewer than 12 of them, devoting more than half of Sony's first-party research and development budget to live service efforts. Those efforts hit a serious speed bump when Naughty Dog's multiplayer game was reportedly shelved after Bungie poo-pooed it. I'm sure their feedback hits a little different now after seeing the current state of Destiny 2, which just this week hit an all-time low in terms of player count and engagement. Regardless, Sony are definitely pivoting in their broader approach to live service titles. In a recent earnings call, Sony President Hiroki Totoki confirmed that a number of live service projects have been delayed due to quality concerns. Quote, "We are reviewing this. We are trying as much as possible to ensure these games are enjoyed and liked by gamers for a long time. Of the 12 titles, 6 will be released by FY25. That's our current plan. As for the remaining 6 titles, we are still working on that." Release dates on those projects were far from clear, but it was understood that most of them should have been delivered by FY25, meaning that Sony has effectively delayed half of their live service portfolio. Many are cheering at the news, and yeah, look, I'll be honest, it seems a bit crazy to me that a single publisher is trying to push out 12 live service games at once, especially given that Sony have built their empire on high-quality single-player titles. Diluting their focus from that just seems like such a thoroughly bad idea, so any rethinking of that strategy has got to be a good thing. At the same time, these projects are still in development. It's not like Sony have cancelled them, so they're still going down this path, they're just doing it more slowly, so I guess we shouldn't be doing any victory laps yet. Alright, time for some good-ish news. The KOTOR Remake appears to be alive, but it's probably on life support at this point. So, if you've been following along with this saga, you might remember that the game was being handled by Aspire Media, who apparently did such a shabby job of it that they lost the project. Publisher Embracer Group took it off them and gave it to Saber Interactive, who right now are working on a bunch of things, including Space Marine 2. Anyway, we haven't heard a peep from Saber since then, leading many to speculate that the remake was effectively dead. This week, Embracer boss Lars Wingfors was asked point blank during an earnings call if the game was still in development. Here's what he had to say, quote, "I noticed that anything I say to this becomes a headline, so that is my only comment," end quote. Hardly very reassuring. It got even worse after that though when Jeff Grubb said on the Game Mess podcast, quote, "This game is not being worked on right now, full stop. This game is not being worked on in any way at any studio," end quote. It was at that moment that Jason Schreier rode in to save the day. Tweeting just this afternoon, he confirmed that the project was still alive, but even he didn't sound too convinced of its long-term prospects. Quote, "Can't say whether the KOTOR remake will ever actually come out, but yes, 2 people from Saber Interactive tell me they're still on it, despite recent rumors that nobody is working on the game," end quote. So that's something, but it's not exactly Saber Interactive shouting from the rooftops about the strength of this project. Still, you gotta hope that Embracer Group get this one right, because they need a win. They've gone from one disappointment to the next after their Saudi-backed lifeboat capsized, leaving Embracer swimming in debt. They've slashed 900 jobs in just the last 3 months alone and promised more job cuts to come. They also had Payday 3 go completely belly up. In the same earnings call, they disclosed that the game performed below expectations owing to the crippling technical issues that rendered the game unplayable for weeks. Whether it's in-progress projects or brand spanking new releases, Embracer Group just can't seem to catch a break. A quick lightning round to finish off. The League of Legends Worlds Final smashed records this week when it clocked up over 6 million concurrent viewers, excluding Chinese viewership. This makes it the most watched esports event in history, the perfect audience for Faker to reclaim his crown for the 4th time, absolute GOAT. These numbers come just a week after Blizzard's Overwatch League voted to end itself, citing low audience engagement and viewership. Blizzard and Riot are both based in LA, but when it comes to their handling of esports, it's very much a tale of two cities. While the Western games industry is chugging down layoffs like a frat boy at a keg party, the Japanese games industry is hiring more staff and paying them more money. This week, Atlas, makers of the Persona series, announced that they were giving their people a 15% pay increase. It follows a 5% increase earlier this year, and it comes in recognition of the fact that business is good, and it's good to reinvest profit into the people who help make that profit. Western publishers be like, instructions unclear, sacked 20% of workforce, and bought a third Lamborghini. Interested in Borderlands 4 or Tiny Tina's Wonderlands 2? No? Well, bad luck. You're getting them anyway, probably. The VGC spotted mention of it in the LinkedIn of former studio technical director of Lost Boys, Randall Reese. Lost Boys had been working with Gearbox to support them on Tiny Tina 1, and it looks like they're helping out with an unannounced sequel, as well as Borderlands 4, which is also, to this point, unannounced. Not too surprising, we were always going to get new Borderlands games because that's Gearbox's bread and butter, but a new Tiny Tina game was more of a toss-up. Personally, I'm happy about it because I actually really like Tiny Tina. Borderlands, though, I don't know, man. I feel like that franchise is ripe for a reboot at this point. The Talos Principle 2 is a very big hit. This week, publisher Devolver Digital tweeted, quote, "Congrats to Crow Team on the Talos Principle 2 becoming the most acclaimed game in their 30-year history, and thanks to the over 100,000 players that have ventured into the mysteries of this philosophical masterpiece," end quote. Heard nothing but positive buzz about this one all week, actually, with more than a few people calling it a legit all-timer in the puzzle game space. Still blows me away that this is from the same company behind Serious Sam. God bless them. It's far from official, but we may have a release date for Dragon's Dogma 2. VGC are reporting that the PEGI ratings board slapped an 18+ rating on the game, very encouraging, and they also posted the release date, March 22nd of next year. If this is true, and that's still a big if, then we can expect to see confirmation of this at the Game Awards in early December, so stay tuned. RGG, makers of the Yakuza Like a Dragon series, are either hyping us up or threatening us, not sure which one. They say their next mainline entry, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, is a, quote, monster class game, longer than anything we've made so far, end quote. He goes on to say that if you played it continuously, you'd get sick. And I can just hear the RGG community right now being like, challenge accepted. Here's something cool. If you're all like me and you've been feeling guilty about how little Hello Games is charging for No Man's Sky updates and content, then worry not, because recently Hello Games confirmed that they pulled in roughly £40 million this past year, up from £27 million the year before. A reminder that every single update they've provided since launch has been 100% free, so that revenue is literally just people buying the game. It continues to sell in droves owing to the steady stream of updates. Not for nothing, but the game's most recent peak concurrent player count occurred in the same week that Starfield launched. I guess people were hungry for a space game without all the loading screens. Speaking of which, it finally happened. 2 months after release, Starfield has finally slipped into the mixed user reviews category on Steam, and for the first time ever sits below 50% positive reviews. At the time of writing, it was currently at 48% for recent reviews and 69% for all reviews. I have been tracking that number over time, and bad news for Todd, I don't see that slide stopping anytime soon. So what's coming out this week? Well, one announcement that did the rounds this week was for a game called Kaiserpunk. It's grand strategy meets city builder with an alternative history premise, namely that of a never-ending World War I. It's pretty rare to see these two genres mashed together because they're both pretty complex and ambitious in their own right. Hopefully the studio who are self-publishing this one didn't bite off more than they can chew. We'll find out when this one launches sometime next year, no date yet. Larian are getting their wheelbarrow ready to wheel away all of the statues coming their way at the Game Awards. Before that though, they've got some announcements, like a much requested physical edition of Baldur's Gate 3. The deluxe package contains some stickers, a world map, an official soundtrack, some other stuff, and best of all, they're not shipping to Australia. Sorry, did I say best of all? I meant worst of all. You have no idea how disappointed I was when I clicked through all of the shit, only to find out that basically every country on the planet was listed except Australia. It's like the Steam Deck all over again. Anyway, for everybody not living in the Upside Down, you can pre-order this now for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. It'll ship sometime in early 2024. Speaking of Baldur's Gate 3 and Xbox, Larian have reiterated that we should expect to see the Xbox release sometime this year. They did confirm that they'll reveal the release date at the Game Awards, and I'd bet big money on a shadow drop since there'd be no better way to celebrate Baldur's Gate winning 20 awards, including Game of the Year, than by throwing wide the gates to the Xbot army. Man, you guys are in for such a treat. I'm truly jealous of anyone who gets to experience this game for the first time. Much the same way that I am jealous of anyone who gets to experience the greatest game of all time for the first time. I'm talking, of course, about Outer Wilds, which just this week has been reconfirmed for the Switch. So the Switch port was actually announced back in 2021, and we've basically heard nothing since then. Just this week though, developer Mobius Digital put out a trailer for what they're calling the Archaeology Edition, which is the Switch port, but they didn't specify what other changes are included in this new edition. They also didn't specify a release date, they just said you can pre-order it if you want. And yeah, I don't know about that, in the sense that this game ran really badly on PS4 and Xbox because it's extremely CPU intensive. The length of time they've spent on this port has me wondering what Mobius had to do to get it running on Nintendo's handheld, and if the recent Hogwarts Legacy port is anything to go by, I think it'd be wise to wait for reviews rather than blindly pre-ordering this one. You definitely have to experience Outer Wilds at some point, but whether or not that should be on the Switch definitely remains to be seen. Final release date is a funny one. You guys know Do You Know Gaming, the YouTube channel that does the trivia videos on video games? Well, they've partnered up with variety publisher Lost in Cult to release a physical card game based on that. It's got a very retro-inspired art style. It looks kind of fun. Lost in Cult are the same people that do the Lock-On publication that I shouted out a while ago. Really beautiful, high-quality books that celebrate gaming with a particular focus on art. They did an entire volume devoted to Sable recently, which was beautiful, and issue 6 is now available for pre-order. Same goes for A Profound Waste of Time, another physical publication that I really recommend checking out if you're looking for beautifully presented, wonderfully written gaming periodicals. I really love all this stuff. It's such a treat to be able to hold something and flick through it. It's the same reason I'm subbed to Edge Magazine. If you want to check out either of those publications, I'll leave a link to them below the like button. Finally, rounding out this block, there was one delay announcement this week. It was for Thaumaturge, a game I shouted out a few weeks back. It's an isometric turn-based RPG that's looking superb, and feedback from the demo has been fantastic. It's meant to arrive on December 5th, but it's just copped a delay. It'll now arrive on February 22nd. February. With Suicide Squad, and Helldivers 2, and Banishers, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and Tomb Raider Remaster, and The Last Epoch, and Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and now Thaumaturge. Curse of February continues. So what came out last week? Well, The Last Faith arrived on a bunch of platforms, and it's had a relatively strong showing, landing at a mostly positive 76% on Steam, critics putting it at about the same, a fair 74 on OpenCritic. Quite a spread in those scores though. At the top end you've got God as a Geek, who scored it a 9, saying, quote, "The Last Faith doesn't have a hugely original setting, but it's an atmospheric, thrilling experience throughout," end quote. The lower scores all point to a lack of innovation on the gameplay front, like PC Invasion, who scored it a 5 out of 10 and said, quote, "The Last Faith fails to make waves in a market already far too saturated to make space for something that doesn't bring innovation. Beautiful design both in sound and scene is let down by predictable gameplay," end quote. Bottom line, if you're looking for some very pretty but very predictable fun, then this is a safe bet, but if you're looking for a fresh spin on the formula, this ain't it. It's been really great to see the strong reception that Assassin's Creed Nexus is getting. This is a MetaQuest exclusive for the moment, and in a year really lacking any major VR releases, many a hope was pinned on this one. It's hardly the next Half-Life Alyx, but apparently Nexus is a very solid title that more than earns its place in any VR library. It's sitting at a strong 80 on OpenCritic, with most scores hovering at around the 7.5 to 8 out of 10 range. Most interesting thing about it seems to be that it isn't as vomit-inducing as the gameplay clips might lead you to expect. CG Magazine scored it a 7.5 and said, quote, "Assassin's Creed Nexus manages to successfully pull off a fully fledged VR game set around its fast-moving traversal mechanics with minimal motion sickness. They have, in a way, set a new standard for comfort options," end quote. It's also meant to be a bit of a looker, which is rare for VR titles, and it's just nice to see a major publisher doing something in the VR space because it feels like they've almost all pulled back at this point. Persona 5 Tactica dropped last week, but we covered off reviews for that one in last week's show. TLDR, it's good, but it's also a little derivative when it comes to the gameplay. If you're a Persona stan, you're probably going to enjoy yourself, but if you're a tactics purist, then this one probably isn't for you. Super Mario RPG is the final release from Nintendo in what was a bit of a miracle year for the Big N. Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby, Pikmin 4, Super Mario Wonder, and now Super Mario RPG debuts at a mighty 84 on OpenCritic, pleasing both longtime fans of the original and those playing it for the very first time. IGN scored it an 8, saying, quote, "Super Mario RPG is considered a classic for a reason, and this faithful remake makes it easy for anyone who missed it in the SNES era to see why," end quote. GameSpot were in the same spot, scoring it an 8 out of 10 and saying, quote, "Super Mario RPG is an overtly faithful recreation of the Super Nintendo hit, and this charming adventure has aged quite well," end quote. Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin is that rarest of game in 2023, an RTS. And it's meant to be okay-ish, it's not without its flaws. On Steam it's sitting at a mostly positive 71%, with negative reviews pointing to some pretty core issues like unresponsive AI, repetitive objectives, and a shallow economy. It's criticism shared by PC Gamer, who scored scored the game a fairly scathing 55, saying, quote, "Realms of Ruin is a clumsy RTS that's devoid of Warhammer's characteristic dark grimness," end quote. There were more optimistic reviews though, like the 6th Axes, who scored this game an 8 out of 10, saying, quote, "Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realm of Ruin is a great looking, well-tuned RTS that will keep Games Workshop fans happy for many hours," end quote. This is unlikely to be the RTS that brings the genre back to its glory days, but if you're desperate for an RTS, then it's not exactly like you've got many others to choose from. Like they say, beggars can't be choosers. So what's coming out this week? Basically, nothing. If you needed proof that 2023 is essentially over, then this week is certainly that. We do have the Jurassic Park Classic Games collection from Limited Run Games. It contains 7 Jurassic Park games from the 8 and 16-bit eras. None of them were particularly memorable, I don't think, except for the one where you got to play as Dr. Grant riding a Gallimimus. If you're keen to go way, way, way back in time in more ways than one, then this one hits all platforms on the 22nd. A couple of Xbox ports dropping this week. Both Dune, Spice Wars, and Rollerdrome arrive on the 28th. Both of them day one on Game Pass. Love to see it. Link to the Rollerdrome review below the like button. By the way, please click the like button. Love you. Thank you. Only other release this week is a game called The Last Train Home. It's about a group of soldiers making their way home after the end of the Great War by train. Only the passage home is just as fraught as the front lines. You need to carefully manage resources on board your locomotive while commanding your squad to clear the tracks of any obstruction, be it benign or hostile. It's been described as Frostpunk meets Commandos, and that sounds like a pretty rad combination. It's being published by THQ Nordic, and it's arriving exclusive to PC on the 28th. Alright, time to get weird, so put this on your radar. Too young to have experienced the 60s? Well, try Ultros. It's like an LSD trip in video game form. Kinda hard to look at this one and not be immediately bowled over by its visuals. We get really stunning looking games all the time, but it's rare that an art style comes along that makes you say, you know what? I've never seen that before. That's not all they've got going in the presentation department either, since the music here is being provided by El Huervo, best known for their iconic work on the Hotline Miami soundtrack all those years ago. On the gameplay front, Ultros is promising to be an action-driven 2D platformer with a time loop twist, allowing you to experience key story moments and encounters differently to slowly unspool the mystery laying at the heart of your journey. This is a self-published title from developer Harduk, and I think it looks absolutely incredible. If it plays half as good as it looks, then I think we're in for something very special. There's no release date for this one yet, but it is listed as a 2024 release. If you'd like to keep tabs on it by wishlisting it, I profiled it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This On Your Radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and Epic kick us off as per usual with their current offering, Surviving the Aftermath. This is a post-apocalyptic city builder released back in 2021, mostly positive reviews on Steam. Later this week though, that offering will change over to Deliver Us Mars, sequel to the much-loved Deliver Us the Moon. The Mars adventure didn't hit quite as right with audiences, but it's still worth checking out if you're into atmospheric and immersive sci-fi narratives with some lovely visuals. Prime Gaming have a bit of a sense of humor this week, hot on the heels of the apparent cancellation of the KOTOR Remake. They're giving away the original KOTOR. It's a consolation prize that we'll gladly accept because frankly, we've got no other choice. The PS Plus Extra and Premium tiers got their update this past week, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty crappy month. To be fair, there is Teardown on there, which is excellent, truly great, so that's a great excuse to check that one out if you haven't done so on PC yet. There's also Dragon's Dogma, well-timed indeed if that release date leak is to be believed. Outside of that though, there's not a whole lot, to the point where I'd say this is one of the least impressive months I've seen for Sony's subscription service. Contrast that with Game Pass this month, where you get day-and-date Persona 5 Tactica, Spirit Tea, Like a Dragon Gaiden, Jusant, plus day one Xbox ports for Dune, Spice Wars, and Rollerdrome, and one late addition to the service is Wild Hearts, an awesome Monster Hunter style game that sadly doesn't seem long for this world. This was a really, really excellent month for Game Pass, and when it comes to the subscription service thing, it's still Microsoft's game to lose. Our feel-good story for the week closes the book on one of the greatest mysteries in all of video games. Who really said that Miyamoto quote that everyone posts every time a game is delayed? You know the one, a delayed game can be good, but a rush game is forever bad? While that quote is popularly attributed to him, it's long since been debunked that he was the source, since there's no actual record of him saying it, and he's never actually laid claim to it. So that's led everyone to wonder, who did say it? The mystery was revived when this week Gabe Newell appeared on a no-clip documentary about Half-Life, and when talking about all the times that Half-Life was delayed, he sagely quipped, quote, "Late is just for a little while, suck is forever, right?" End quote. Well, no, but that is a topic for another day. For now, let's stay focused. The quote obviously mirrors the popular Miyamoto quote, and it lit a fire under one Kate Willett of acriticalhit.com. She determined to once and for all solve the mystery of who said this quote. It was a sprawling, wild goose chase that led her from Nintendo to Blizzard, from web forums to old magazines. Eventually, though, she traced it to a person named Ellen Guon, who, when quoting their significant other in 1996, said, quote, "A game is only late until it ships, but it's bad forever." Willett managed to track down this person's significant other, a woman by the name of Siobhan Beeman, who confirmed that she did in fact say this during a 1996 GDC panel while she was working as a developer at Origin. Another person backed this up, but said the original phrasing was more along the lines of, quote, "A game's only late until it ships, but it sucks forever," end quote. Couldn't have put it any better, and it seems as though Gaben agrees. Alright nerds, you've been a fantastic audience as always, staying right to the end the way that you do. I love it, appreciate it, but could I ask the smallest of favors? Hit the like button. It's the equivalent of giving a YouTuber a pat for being a very good boy. And if you really want to go in and give a hearty belly scratch, then you could hit that subscribe button, ding the notification bell. Did I take that analogy too far? Was the imagery too vivid for your imagination? Probably yes, but what's done is done, so we're just going to own it now. I'm going to go back to playing a few things on my pile of shame. Austin may have another cheeky indie spotlight review for you later this week, and like I said, expect some in-person coverage over at the Game Awards very soon. For now, thanks again for watching, and a big thanks to this week's sponsor, Ridge Wallet. Alright, no intro bands for this one, just the cold hard dollars and cents. Ridge Wallets usually offer a nice discount on this channel, but they never offer anything as good as they're offering right now. Up to 30% off when you click the special link I've put below. That is an absolutely mammoth discount, and it couldn't come at a better time since Christmas is right around the corner and a wallet upgrade for someone special in your life would hardly go amiss. I personally was using a Ridge wallet before they sponsored the channel. I saw it somewhere on YouTube since they're into the whole influencer marketing thing. I've been using one for over 3 years now, and it's always been fantastic. Ridge wallets can hold all of your cards, well, within reason, and they have different options for the back, including both a money clip and an elastic strap. I prefer the strap personally. There's also an AirTag add-on, making it easier to track down your wallet if you've left it around the house, or maybe out of the house if you've, I don't know, had a big night or something. They're just an extremely comfortable and durable means of keeping your cards and cash safe. Those bulky leather wallets, I just can't imagine going back to one of those now. These just sit so much more comfortably on the body, you notice it less, and I think they just look cooler too. There's also the Ridge key case, which is another thing I use. Just like the wallet cleanly organizes my cards and cash, the key case organizes my keys into one sleek little unit. Forget that big mess of keys that stabs into your thigh, the key case will bring order and comfort to that chaotic clump. There are so many different styles to choose from, with new styles being added all the time. I mean, just recently they added their Hyperline wallet and key case set. Pretty hard to miss these ones lying around the house, right? Or if you're looking for something a little more chic and understated, maybe the new ceramic powder line will be more to your taste. I personally really like this line actually. Ridge has over 3 million customers worldwide and over 80,000 5-star reviews. There's a 99-day risk-free trial, meaning that you can send it back for a full refund if you aren't happy with your purchase, and every Ridge wallet comes with a lifetime warranty, something that very, very few products offer this day and age. Ridge wallets are not only a great wallet upgrade for you, but they also make the perfect gift. Since a lot of people don't know that there's a new, better type of wallet out there, so upgrade your own wallet or someone else's by visiting ridge.com/skillup, where right now you can get up to 30% off your purchase when you visit that link. Also, if you use my link, you can enter your email or SMS for a free chance to win a Ridge bundle worth $4,000 with absolutely no purchase necessary. That's ridge.com/skillup. That is easily the steepest discount I've seen Ridge offer. So if you've ever been interested in a Ridge wallet for yourself or someone else, then now is absolutely the time. Thanks Ridge for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.